It's time for your Low Country real estate market update. It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Brian is one of the top 1% real estate agents in Charleston. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. Now, broadcasting from the WTMA studios, here's your host, Brian Beatty.
Good morning, Charleston. Welcome to another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. I'm live in the studio today, so if you guys have questions, you want to share a story, learn more about a particular topic, maybe, ask me some tough questions, some things that you've always wanted to know about real estate, or maybe just get some clarification on what in the world is going on in this market. How do we make sense out of this? That's what we're going to talk about, of course, on this show, which is what we've been doing here for 8 years on this program, giving you my expert opinion on the real estate market as somebody that has sold real estate, is still selling real estate at a very high level, top 1% of agents nationwide, and over about 1,000 transactions or so here in the Charleston market. So anyways, I like sharing my experiences with you guys so that you understand what's going on in the housing market nationally, regionally, locally. We've got a pretty special thing happening here to us in Charleston, which is that we are a destination. We are a hub that people are moving to from all over the country. And man, it sure is making it challenging for buyers to purchase a home right now. So that's the first thing we're going to talk about is how can we increase the likelihood of your offer getting accepted with everybody coming from all different parts of the country and, coming from areas that are used to higher price homes that have cash. How can we separate ourselves? How can we differentiate ourselves? So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about, on the flip side of that, as a seller, what can you be doing to prepare your home to be sold? What does that process look like in this market where it seems like anytime you put anything under contract, it sells in, hours, days? Is it even worth it to prep the home for sale, or should buyers just deal with it? So we're going to answer a lot of those questions. I'm in the studio today, and I'll apologize ahead of time for clearing my throat every once in a while. Just can't seem to shake some congestion. But the number here in the studio is 843-556-1250. So if you'd like to call in and ask some questions, gain some clarity on a segment or a portion of this market, or just have a general knowledge question, happy to help. 843-556-1250 is the number here in the studio. And if you want to reach out to me personally, you would like to talk about buying, selling, or investing in real estate, we'd love the opportunity to help you. We've got a team of 25. We recently moved our team from Keller Williams Realty, where we were for a decade, to eXp Realty. We're excited about that. I've been renovating a new office space on Daniel Island, and I'm still kind of covered in paint every time I look around to see a new little fleck that I haven't gotten to yet, but man, we're enjoying it. So again, the number here in the studio, 843-556-1250, but my personal cell is 400-8009. So I want to talk about what's going on in this market as a buyer. You get to the point where you're finally looking at properties, you're walking through homes, and you're in a position where, you've done your research. You understand the process for the most part. Now it's time for you to go and buy something. If you actually see something that you like enough to make an offer, what does that look like? How do we position ourselves here? And we're going to, hold on just one moment. I think we've got somebody calling in, but to finish, to kind of expand on this thought, when we get to the point where we want to make an offer, there are several things that really need to happen in order for you to increase the chances of your offer going through. Now, we're going to pretend for a moment that we do not have the ability to pay cash for whatever we want to pay cash for. And I'm going to pause on that thought, and we're going to go to the phones. We're going to go to Danielle in James Island. Danielle, hey, how are you?
Yeah, I'm was just wondering your thoughts on if the pre-closing appraisals are keeping up with or keeping in mind the ultra-inflated pricing houses. Like I live on James Island, the house has gone up in value so much, but I don't know if the appraisal is going to come out to the value that we're asking.
Well,
does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And, we see it's a concern on almost every transaction that we do. We've, on my team, we've done over 100 of them already so far this year. And the reality is prices are moving so quickly in some areas of Charleston that what sold last week or last month or 3 months from now or from then it's dated information, right? What we put a property under contract for 2 months ago that just closed, that same buyer would theoretically be willing to pay more for that same property now. So appraisers are adjusting for this. They are accounting for it. They're not just comparing bedrooms and bathrooms and square footage and condition and lot size and just the specifics for each individual home, but they're also reporting on the stability, instability, undersupply, oversupply of homes in that market and accounting for that in their analysis. So we, more often than not, don't see huge gaps between what that property is under contract for and what it appraises for. But what we have found to be more common now than in years past, of course, is in order for that buyer to increase the likelihood of their offer being accepted, they're waiving the appraisal contingency, which just says, hey, we were going to put 20% down, but we're going to change things up a little bit. Now we're only going to put 10% down. And if there's a difference between the sales price and the appraisal amount, then we've got some cash left over to kind of bridge the gap. So
that makes sense.
Tough to say, of course, on your particular deal, whether the appraisal is going to match your, contract amount without the specifics and
right.
good knowledge of the comps.
How they keep yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for calling in. And so what I was getting at there is that there are so many buyers out there that are just trying to figure out, how can I be different with my offer? What can I do? How can I separate myself from maybe 10, 12 other people without doing something stupid? And I think that there are plenty of agents out there that are saying, well, if we really want to swing for the fences, this is what this looks like. You're basically buying it as is. Basically, as soon as you sign that contract, you're saying that you're buying it no matter what. Now, on some homes, that might make sense. If you're getting a good enough deal on something, that might make sense. We don't really see people select as is in a real estate contract unless it's an investor, unless you know that you're going to be doing a bunch of work to it, unless you've bought homes before or you're working with somebody that can walk through a property and say, okay, this is going to cost $10,000, that's going to cost $20,000, that's going to cost $3,000. I mean, I have the ability to do it because I've been spending money for a long time on renovating property. I know how much things cost. I'm working with my best friend right now to buy a home, and we found one that we've made an offer on that we're currently negotiating on. And I said, if you really want to negotiate, if you want to renovate this thing, this is what this is going to look like. This is what this is going to cost. This is what it's going to be worth when it's all said and done. So it is worth it to go through this process. But I tell you what we're going to do before I get into this list of how to increase the likelihood of your offer getting accepted, we're going to take a quick break because I want to steamroll through this. I've got a lot of great suggestions and an awesome program that you guys are going to want to know more about. So stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
More stimulating talk on real estate matters with Brian Beatty next on 1250 WTMA.
1250 WTMA, the Big Talker.
You're listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
Welcome back, folks, to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. live in the studio today. So the number here to call and reach me, ask your questions, is 843-556-1250, 556-1250. And if you'd like to reach out to me and have a private conversation off air, you're thinking of buying, selling, or investing in real estate, you'd like to work with a top team. We've been in the top 1% of agents here for, going on our 13th year in a row. So we'd love to earn your business. Our number is 843-400-8009. That's my personal cell. Or you can just check us out online, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Learn about all of our great guarantees that we're running right now. 2.4% listing commission. We've got options to help you renovate your home and sell it for profit. We can give you cash loans to purchase property so that you don't have to get a mortgage, at least immediately, so that you can buy the house. There's just so many different things that we're doing to help people situationally. What I would say is just if you're in the market, give us a call, 400-8009, or go to listingsincharleston.com. I'm sure we've got something that would work well for you. But I want to focus on the next 10 minutes or so, at least, on how to increase the likelihood of your offer getting accepted. And the first thing that I'm going to tell you is actually a humongous pet peeve of mine. When you're working with a real estate agent and you have spent all this time and energy going out and driving through neighborhoods, communicating about specific areas, walking through individual homes, and then you finally get to the one that you like enough to say, wow, I want to live here with my family. This is fantastic. What an excellent opportunity for us to build some memories together. And you've got this real estate agent that basically is challenging to communicate with. And every time you call, it takes a few hours for them to call you back. They're not necessarily being helpful, so to speak, in terms of providing you with opportunities to go and see things. It's more, hey, I saw this house online. Can you show it to me, Mr. and Mrs. Agent? You kind of get what the picture that I'm painting here. It's what a lot of people go through when they work with a real estate agent. It's frustrating for them because here these agents stand to make a pretty big chunk of change, and you'd think that there would be a little more effort on their part. And I've been doing the show for 8 years, and I have no problem with kind of telling you, the listener, how it is with a lot of these folks. They're either scattered or they don't have a bunch of resources that they can offer people. Maybe that's just how they were taught how to do it. Maybe from their perspective, they're thinking, hey, if the buyer's going to tell you what they want to see and ask every time they want to see something, just wait for them to ask you and then go show them what they want to see. I'm not that way. I'm not built that way. My business is not built that way. We are proactive. So anyways, you finally get to the point where you want to make an offer on something, and here's what the agent does. And I kid you not, this happens the majority of times that I have listings, that our team has listings. I'll open up my email at some random point throughout the day, and there is an attachment to an email that says, offer on 123 Main Street. And then in the body, it'll just say, please confirm receipt. And that's it. So there you go, Mr. Buyer, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer. You've spent all this time and energy in an incredibly competitive market to find something that you're excited enough to move into. Huge financial commitment. And the agent can't even bother to call or text or write something to help you, their client, increase the likelihood of your offer being accepted. It's sad. It really is. So how do you, as a buyer, protect yourself from that? Interview agents. Don't just go with the first person with a heartbeat and a real estate license. There are way too many of us out there, and there are way too many really good ones out there for you to work with somebody that that you're not happy with. Now, I'm not advocating that you fire agents and break contractual agreements. What I'm saying is be intelligent about the process and hire somebody. Set expectations with them. They should be setting expectations with you. I mean, that's what a good symbiotic professional relationship looks like. is here's everything that I'm going to do for you. In return, I ask that you do this for me. And if it works out, great. If not, there are plenty of agents out there. So the first one is just make sure that the offer is presented. Sounds simple, but the vast majority of the time, even in this market, it's please confirm receipt. Make sure that a pre-approval letter is attached to that. You as a buyer should be, in my opinion, writing a letter as well. Now, between us, since it's just us, talking, if you want to create a nice form letter that you can adjust to the address or then maybe a few of the specifics on that particular house or that street, save yourself a little time, that probably would be a good idea. But, do something that adds a personal touch. And yes, it might sound cheesy, but I tell you what, they work. They work because our offers, my team's offers, are getting accepted, and they're not the best offer on the table. So there's a little trick for you. Now, speaking of making really good offers, how high do we go? How much do we kind of quote unquote play the game? Here's a good general rule of thumb. If it's a new listing, it's just hit the market. You as a buyer are going to be able to tell how much activity surrounds that house. I mean, there are some showings that we go to where there's literally people just waiting in the front yard, waiting to go see it. We had an open house where we had like 40 plus cars on the street. So if it's a new listing, my suggestion is make your best offer. Don't mess around. Offer what you're willing to pay for it. If it works out, awesome. If it doesn't, hopefully something else hits the market that better suits you. But put your best foot forward. Don't be absurd about it. If there are no other offers, make a good enough offer for the seller to say, you know what? Yep, I'm just going to take it. I don't want to have to do the whole song and dance of having 30 other people walk through my house and, having to leave and clean and drive around with my dog in the car for 8 hours. So if it's a new listing, put your best foot forward. Make a good, strong offer. They're going to get one anyways. You might as well be first. Now, if they're a little bit, older, meaning they've been on the market for a while, maybe they've done a price reduction or two, then there's more appetite for negotiation. Then you can get them a little bit. But if it's a new listing, new to market, it's going to sell, don't mess around. Just try to buy it. Just try to be the one that buys it. Not the one that gets this great deal, because more than likely it's not going to happen. And I know that sounds harsh, but this is me, Brian Beatty, real estate show host talking, not Brian Beatty, real estate agent, advocating for you talking, if that makes sense. I'll also say this just really quickly. We were talking about presenting offers. The agent that you hire does play a part in it. And you might not think that it does, but there are certain agents out there that they're tough to deal with, very tough to deal with. Some of them have processes and hoops that they make you jump through that are not friendly to the transaction, but friendly to them and their system that they've built. And hey, good for them. There's certain agents that say, hey, if you want to make an offer, you've got to do everything our way. And I'm maybe just a little too stubborn for that. But we've got a great reputation in town. We're easy to work with. We know what we're doing. That does benefit our clients in that ain't nobody pulling the wool over our eyes. You're not going to get one off on us. We're gonna do this correctly. We're gonna make sure the paperwork is in order. I can't tell you the number of times agents like, yeah, I'm good with that. Are you? Yeah, let's get it in writing. But generally speaking, I'm good with it. Oh well, if we've got a deal, then I don't see the need to. Yes, there's always a need to put something in writing when there's an agreement between two parties. Because I'm not buying the house and you're not selling the house. We work for others. Anyways, other steps you can take to increase the likelihood that your offer will be accepted. Remove clutter from the contract, meaning if you don't absolutely have to have that dining room chandelier and the seller wants it, get a different chandelier. Just walk away from that chandelier. Buy the house. Get yourself a nice chandelier. Don't let a deal blow up. because they have something of personal value to them that you want. Another thing that you can do is you can just include a sizable earnest money. We have all these listings that are, 400, 500 million, and we're seeing earnest money for $1,000. Earnest money traditionally is 1% of the purchase price. So we'll have this, $700,000 listing, get an offer, $1,000 in earnest money. Well, earnest money is simply the money that you put up in good faith that you are invested into this transaction, and that if you do not perform, that money then transfers to the seller. Among other things, there are plenty of ways to get sued and have damages assessed, and it costs way more than your earnest money. But generally speaking, that's what it's for. It's called consideration. Well, if you're buying a $750,000 house, you're doing fairly well for yourself financially. Is $1,000 really going to hurt you if you have to walk away from that deal? No, probably not. So from a seller's perspective, you want that earnest money to hurt if that buyer has to walk away from this deal, if they strategically default, if something on their end goes wrong that they don't have a right to back out of the contract from. So as a buyer, maybe you consider giving a little bit more than the 1% earnest money. So long as you're protected contractually, of course. You've got contingencies and ways that you can kind of quote-unquote get out of the contract and get your earnest money back. But if you intend on moving forward with the transaction so long as everything else checks out, then maybe you do 2% down on your earnest money. It works. You can also use, you get really clear on what your inspection rights are. Before this market really just got to the point where it was overheated, most buyers were making offers with a due diligence period of somewhere around 2 weeks, let's just call it. Well, really what that means, this is important for whether you're a buyer or a seller. Due diligence from a real estate perspective really means that you have a set period of time as a buyer to investigate whatever you want to investigate, inspect whatever you want to inspect, request whatever you want to request, or back out for any reason whatsoever. So from a seller's perspective, even though they've got this full price offer, if there's due diligence in the contract, it's a 2-week or so get out of jail free card. It doesn't really give the seller, that warm and fuzzy feeling that their deal is actually going to close. Now, let's say that, let's say we've got a 30-day closing, but a 2-week due diligence period. So the seller's basically waiting for 2 weeks to make sure this deal is even going to go through, and then they've only got 16 days to identify a new place and move. It's tough. We make it work. We've done it many, hundreds and hundreds of times, but it can get really tricky. And that's why expectations in contracts matter so much. And so as a buyer, you need to be consulted by the agent to create a reasonable timeline of events in your contract. And if that doesn't happen, then the likelihood of your offer getting accepted is going to be significantly less. You know what a lot of sellers are actually getting right now is they're getting offers where the buyer purchases their home and it says, you know what, why don't you just stay there for a month for free? My first mortgage payment isn't until the full month after I close. So why don't you stay there for 30 days? Give you a little breathing room as you're going and finding your new place. Well, isn't that interesting? Because the common objection of sorts that we get right now is, well, yeah, I would list my home, but I don't know where I'm going to go. I need to find another place before I'm going to sell my house. But then we hear about all these offers that we've also received ourselves of, hey, we'll buy your home and then you can stay there for 45 days. Well, don't you think as a seller, if you put your home on the market and somebody made you an offer with those kinds of terms, that between the amount of time it takes you to close on that house plus the 30 to 45 days that it's going to take for you to be able to stay there for free, that you can find a new home, Yes, absolutely. And by the way, you've already cashed out. Now you've got money in the bank. It's not a home sale contingency. Creative thinking and problem solving is what's going to help this market, not agents kind of pouring gasoline on the fire and being lazy. So we're going to finish this topic. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to shift over to preparing homes for sale. Is it really necessary? Should we be doing that? Should we just let the buyer deal with it? I mean, is the market really that strong? So if you have questions on this, I know a lot of folks out there want to buy. The number here in the studio is 843-556-1250. Give us a call. Stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
Have a real estate question? Ask Brian Beatty. Send him an email, lowcountryhomesales@gmail.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show is on 1250 WTMA.
1250 WTMA.
Now, the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues on Charleston's Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, folks, to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. So I want to, excuse me, I want to finish my thought here on how to increase the likelihood of your offer getting accepted in a market where, let's face it, we have folks that are moving here from Florida and California and, not Florida, but New York. Florida is one of the places they're moving to. In fact, we have quite a few halfbacks that live here now. If you've ever heard the term, then you know what I'm talking about. If not, then a halfback is someone that simply is from, the Northeast that moves down to Florida and then comes halfway back and settles here in Charleston, South Carolina. So there you go. Terminology for you. That and frog is something that not a lot of people are used to when we're talking real estate terminology. Frog is front room over garage. I had to learn that one myself. So just finishing this thought, if you're trying to buy a house in this market and you don't have just a boatload of cash sitting around, which most don't, then we need to be creative in how we get our offer accepted. And so I went through some things that can help with that without doing something crazy like, hey, you know what, I'll buy it as is, no home inspection, no appraisal. Yes, I have to get a mortgage, but who cares? If something goes wrong, it's all on my dime. I'm not a fan of that. All right, that's in my opinion, not intelligent, because you can accomplish things without inheriting that level of risk. One of ways of doing that is by using a program that we have that will allow you to borrow the cash to buy the property for a very small fee. And I mean very small fee. Now, so here's how this works. And if you have questions about this, or just buying a home in general in a market like this, or selling a home in a market like this, then call into the studio. We'd love to hear from you. 843-556-1250. 843-556-1250. So here's how this program works. We identify the property we want to purchase. We negotiate a deal that says, hey, even if we decide to get a mortgage on the property, even if we would like to sell our home before we buy this one, no matter what, we can buy your home even if we have to pay cash for it. Even if we have to pay cash for it is where the program comes in. In other words, it says that, hey, if you cannot get financing in time, if you cannot sell your home in order to buy this one in time, then the program will purchase the home for you, cash, and then you just rent it back from them until you can buy it. For up to 6 months, by the way. It's a beautiful program. It works incredibly well, and it costs either 1% or 2%, depending upon how much of the program you use. And let's be honest, if you're in a bidding war and you're putting, 3.5% down, you're getting an FHA mortgage, and you're competing with other people that are paying cash, what do you have to do in order to get your offer accepted, or at least some serious consideration? You got to be more expensive than the cash offers. Well, if you become the cash offer, You're kind of spending the money anyways, theoretically. Might as well just strengthen your position and give the seller the peace of mind that no matter what, this deal will close even if it has to be cash. And now for all those folks out there that need to sell their home before they buy, you can use this program, and even if your home does not sell in time, this program will still buy the home. You just rent from them until your home sells. You can move into it. You can maybe prep your home that might need some more work so that you can move out of it, have it nicely staged, not be there, and then, let the 20-plus people in one day walk through your house without you being homeless for a few days while your home's on the market. So there's some incredible opportunity out there in the form of different programs and, again, creative thinking, problem solving that are truly helping people accomplish their goals. The traditional method can still work, but again, I think this is what separates the agents with a lot of experience and that have creativity from the ones that just don't, or that are new. And there's nothing wrong with new agents, and I say this almost every show at this point because there's so many of them. All I can say is interview your agents. I'm just going to leave it at that. But I do want to kind of shift topics, and I want to talk about the seller side. If we're going to put our home on the market, do we really need to go through and touch up paint? Do we need to have the carpets professionally cleaned? Do we really need to do all of the landscaping? Do we need to Do we need to declutter? Do we need to stage? All of these questions come up, right? And it comes up from every seller, regardless of whether it's a buyer's market or a seller's market. It's, how do I prepare my home to be sold in this kind of market? The first thing that I want to say about that is please have a real estate agent like myself walk through your house with you first before you start doing a bunch of work to it. It's really unfortunate at times when I walk through a house with somebody and they say, well, we just didn't, Brian, we didn't want you to come over before, this work was done because, we didn't, we knew we had to do it anyways. And there are plenty of times where, we'll start talking and I'll say, oh, well, that's an interesting choice. And, let's say that they've done a kitchen remodel in order to sell, but the choices are extremely specific to their taste. If we're going to be renovating a property to sell it, we should be renovating it to appeal to a broad customer base. In fact, we should be separating repairs from renovations, right? We should be looking at those two things not as equals, repairs before renovations. But just have that agent walk through you, talk with them about your game plan. This is what we're thinking about doing. And then we can say, okay, based on everything we've talked about, this is what I think you should do. This is what I think you can do. And here's the associated return on investment with doing that. And here's what you should not do. Here's what I would not spend the money and the time, the resources on. You're just not going to get it back. It might make you feel better, but it's not really going to matter to the buyer in the grand scheme of things. So save your money, save your time. And then the other part of that, which is really important, is that you work with contractors that have been vetted, that are not going to price gouge you. Let's be honest, there is a ton of work out there for contractors. They're incredibly busy, just like everybody else is in the housing business right now. And if they're going to take on a job, they're going to make it worth their while. They're kind of always playing around with their pricing models. Not all of them. There are plenty of contractors out there that are reliable, that do a great job, that are the ones that get repeat business. But then you also have the contractors that are always getting the one-time business. They don't have that customer base. They have only new customers that they cycle through. If that makes sense. It's a lot like real estate agents, in fact. Over 60% of the business that we do every year comes from folks that we've previously worked with. There are plenty of other agents out there that do not have that kind of repeat business, and so they're always on the grind. They're always on the hamster wheel looking for brand new business because they can't service the existing business they have in a way that would make them want to work with them again. So, again, getting back to, as a seller, how much of this do you really need to do? What are your options to increase the chance that you're going to sell your home for top dollar? So, if you have questions, as somebody listening right now, you want to sell your home, you're thinking about buying a home, we've got about 15 or so minutes left in the program, and I'm going to take a quick break so that I can get through this list. But if y'all have questions, 843-556-1250 is the number here in the studio. Or if you want to reach out to me personally, 400-8009 is my number. 400-8009, or check me out online, listingsincharleston.com. We'll be right back.
Find Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues next on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. 1250 WTMA. Expert news and views on the Low Country real estate scene. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, folks, to the last few minutes of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. So, 10 or so minutes left in the program. If you want to call and ask your questions, chat with me for a few moments about anything on your mind real estate related. The number here in the studio is 843-556-1250. And again, if you want to contact me personally, you have a real estate question, you're thinking of buying or selling a home yourself, then my personal number, which you can call or text, is 843-400-8009. That's 400-8009. Or go to listingsincharleston.com. Or shoot me an email, brian@brianbeattyteam.com. So finishing out this kind of list of sorts that I came up with of things that you can do to prepare your home in this market. We had talked before the break about having a real estate agent walk through with you to help you understand what you should do, what you can do, and what you should not do. Like as an example, if your roof is 10 years old, 12 years old, it's getting up there in age, and you say, you know what, we're going to go ahead and replace the roof because it's getting older, and I'd rather do that now rather than there be an issue. Well, if you're selling the property and there's nothing wrong with the roof, meaning nothing needs to be repaired, then this is where an experienced real estate agent is going to come in very handy for you, because we understand how contracts are written. We understand the nitty-gritty of these documents. And I know, as an example, that if somebody's going to make an offer in this market, they're likely going to use something called repair procedure, which from a seller's perspective means that there are only a few things that you're responsible for fixing, one of which is a leaking roof. So if your roof is not leaking, if there are no issues with your roof, it's just old, and a buyer makes you an offer, then you're in a great position because you don't actually have to do anything. There's nothing technically wrong with your roof other than it being old. So if you go and you replace your roof and you spend, $8,000, $12,000, $15,000 on a new roof, that's money that you're not going to get all the way back. So there are all these little things that that make a big difference. That we're talking big money on some of these items too. So we just need to go through and discuss what we should and should not address. Different between repairs and renovations. Generally speaking, I'm an advocate of making repairs. Generally speaking, I am not an advocate of doing small renovations unless we are truly renovating the property to sell it for profit. And you need to understand that there are some areas of the home and things that you can do to a house that have a bigger bang for its buck than others. Like, I'm sorry, but kitchens are incredibly expensive to renovate. You don't make a lot of money on a really nice kitchen renovation unless it's in conjunction with a bunch of other things you've done. You know, having a dated home with a super nice kitchen that cost you $40,000 on a $300,000 house is not a good financial decision. Agents need to understand that. I just so happen to have the benefit of having done this for 16 years and having spent, I don't know how many millions of dollars renovating property. So I understand what that ROI looks like. It's really important that you go through that. You know, I've got a home prep checklist that I wrote, and I actually wrote this years ago, and I've given it away for free a few different points in time on this program. It's usually pretty popular. So if you want to text me the word checklist to 843-400-8009, text the word checklist to 843-400-8009. I'll give you an ebook that I wrote personally. It's called 90 Things to Do to Sell Your Home for Top Dollar. I do not expect you to do 90 separate things to prepare your home for sale. If you did 20% of them, you'd be in good shape. But if you ever wanted to know what you should do in any little nook and cranny of your home, that guide will answer that for you. It is a good representation of my natural character, which is very OCD. So if you want that checklist, 90 things to do to sell your home for top dollar, just text the word checklist to 843-400-8009. In line with that is decluttering and staging. So I'm getting some questions now about people saying, hey, you know, we've moved out of our house. Should we stage the one that we left because it's vacant right now? Or you'll have folks that say, hey, you know, we still live here. We can do some decluttering, but do you suggest that we, you know, like rent a storage space and move out a bunch of our furniture? Should we make it look a lot more sparse than it is? It's all situational. What I will tell people, I guess folks listening, is that anybody that works with my team, we provide a free staging consultation. We have a professional designer and decorator that walks through your house, takes about 2 hours or so, and they go through room by room with you and say, here's what you can do. Here's what you should do. I would not do this. I would save your money on that. And it's essentially just taking what you have and making it a little more form-fitting for the house based on the natural features that house has that buyers are going to appreciate. Because we all get, you know, really comfortable in living in our homes over time. And how we have it set up might not be the best way for it to be set up. So they'll help you with that. And in many instances, it's not like we're going out and buying furniture. We're using what you have. We're just editing it. We're rearranging. We're decluttering. I personally think that it makes a huge difference, and I'm a big advocate of it. I'm not a big advocate of you going out and spending a few $1,000s to stage your house. I don't think it needs it. I don't think people are going to pay more for the house. I've frankly never really felt that way. I think they'll be more encouraged. I think they'll like it more. I think it will create more urgency, which can spark a bidding more. But I don't think somebody looks at a staged home versus a vacant home and then automatically believes that it's worth more money. That's just me personally. Last thing that I would say is that, hey, it's, you know, we live in a pretty tropical area. Things grow pretty quickly around here. Curb appeal is really important. If you don't sell them from the curb, you're probably not going to sell them once they get through the front door, if they even make it there. So curb appeal is incredibly important. And I'd say last thing, just be clear on your pricing strategy and the likely reaction that the market will have to your property. If you intentionally overprice it to build in room for negotiations, expect less traffic. If you price it at what it's worth, that means that by the time it hits the market, it's actually slightly underpriced. People see that. They overbid. You create multiple offer situations. You get to pick and choose the offer that you like the most. There's a bunch of different ways to skin the cat in real estate. That's what makes markets like this really interesting. Our commitment is just to helping you get a home for a great deal or to sell your home for the most money possible. So if we can help you do that, 843-400-8009 is my number. You can check me out online at listingsincharleston.com. You guys enjoy your weekend. Thanks for listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning at 9 and Sunday morning at 10. Contact Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009.